October 6.
Tonight on the Nightly Business Report.
The full standoff. Contributions from Sri Lanka's private sector fuel retailers come under fire as the latest committee on public finance hearings details the emerging reluctance on selling diesel.
Bring the stuff into the country. Now that's not happening.
Following the money. Parliament is set to debate the latest developments relating to the fraud linked to the $2.5 million debt repayment to Australia, with a focus on the irregularities pointed out by the Committee on Public Finance.
Grain against grain. With Yala season underway, local farmers are pushing back against import pressures and low pricing, despite domestic rice production projecting sufficient supply.
That has also created a distortion in the paddy market.
And building momentum. Infrastructural development is put at the forefront as the government mulls allocating funds through the 2027 budget to restart and complete thousands of stalled housing projects across the country.
From Studio 24C, this is the Nightly Business Report with Sanuvi Mudanayaka and Prasansa Gunawardena.
Thank you for joining us with the Nightly Business Report.
The Public Debt Management Office has prepared its annual report for the financial year ended 31st December 2025 in compliance with the provisions of the Public Debt Management Act.
The report details that financing operations throughout 2025 strictly adhere to the domestic-oriented financing approach as stipulated in the medium-term debt management strategy to minimize foreign exchange risk and foster domestic capital markets.
The Public Debt Management Office says in 2025, the financing operations were adhered to domestic-oriented financing approach as stipulated in medium-term debt management strategy to minimize foreign exchange risk and foster domestic capital markets. This was mentioned in the 2025 annual report of the PDMO, which was released a few days ago. The report said that the domestic financing remained the primary funding source, with approximately 93% of the government's total financing met through rupee-dominated instruments. According to the PDMO, in 2025, the gross domestic borrowings totaled 7,761 billion rupees, driven by treasury bills with 5,347 billion rupees and treasury bonds with 2,398 billion rupees. The year also marked the successful reintroduction of domestic dollar bonds, modernizing 16 billion rupees, indicating the recovered liquidity conditions and renewed investor confidence. Externally, the government had secured $1,238 million through 50 new concessional loan agreements strictly restricted to bilateral and multilateral development partners, with total external disbursement for the year reaching $1,780.3 million. The PDMO annual report also said the execution of sovereign debt restructuring operations combined with aggressive fiscal consolidation significantly corrected the risk profile of the government debt portfolio.
The chairman of Ceylon Petroleum Corporation, DJAS, D.S. Rajakaruna, says the private sector fuel suppliers are gradually moving away from selling diesel, citing that their landing costs are much higher than the selling price.
Speaking at the Committee on Public Finance, the CPC chairman said they have told that their landing cost for diesel is around 700 rupees per litre due to price fluctuations in the international market due to Middle East crisis.
Earlier, the CPC was having a market share of 57% for diesel, and it has now increased to around 90%. At present, CPC, Lanka IOC, Sinopec and RM Parks are engaging in petroleum retail businesses in Sri Lanka.
Thrust was to open out to us if there is a crisis, foreign exchange crisis, you get people who have dollar reserves to bring the stuff into the country. Now that's not happening.
That's not happening.
Then you are not fixing an upper scale on the prices. It's open in, they can sell at any price they want. You're also giving them a subsidy for selling a share of you into the market.
Meanwhile, the Finance Ministry officials said that 57 billion rupees provided by the Treasury to subsidize diesel and petrol have been fully spent as of June. Accordingly, the government subsidized 100 rupees for a litre of diesel and 20 rupees for a litre of 92-octane petrol. It was revealed that in the month of April, the total subsidy paid to the fuel retailers was 20,507 million rupees. The Treasury has allocated 15,000 million rupees for CPC, 2,340 million rupees to Lanka IOC, 1,501 million rupees for Sinopec and 1,666 million rupees for RM Parks. The CPC chairman said the government has not declared a subsidy for diesel and petrol for July as of yet. It was revealed that the government has been instructed by the International Monetary Fund to ensure cost-reflective pricing formulas for fuel. In line with that, the CPC chairman said that the actual price for petrol should have been 429 rupees and 83 cents per litre. It includes 135 rupees and 97 cents as government taxes.
Parliament will hold an adjournment debate on the 5th of August over a Committee on Public Finance report on the alleged fraud linked to the $2.5 million debt repayment to Australia.
The debate requested by the opposition will be held from 11:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. according to the Secretary-General of Parliament, Kushani Rohanadira.
The matter will be discussed during the parliamentary session scheduled from August 4th to the 7th. The dates were decided by the Committee on Parliamentary Business, chaired by Speaker Dr. Jagat Vikramaratne. The debate will focus on findings and the concerns raised in the Public Finance Committee report regarding the alleged financial irregularity. Parliament is expected to further examine the issue during the scheduled adjournment debate.
The central bank has announced the opening of an issuance window for 4 treasury bond ISINs following the primary auction held ahead of the 3rd of August 2026 settlement date. Eligible investors may subscribe to the additional issuance at the weighted average yield rate determined at the auction, subject to a maximum allocation of 10% of the respective amount offered. To give more information regarding the treasury bond auction held today, we now have Aknat Thendakon from First Capital Holdings.
The central bank said it will initiate compensation payments to the insured depositors of NLFP subject to a maximum of 1,100,000 rupees from the aggregate deposits of each depositor under the SLDIS in terms of the provisions of the BSPA and the directions issued thereunder. The payments will be made through over-the-counter cash payments, crediting to existing People's Bank accounts or by opening new accounts at People's Bank. In terms of the BSPA, the insured depositors or legal beneficiaries of insured depositors of NLFP are permitted to claim compensation until 2032. The license issued to Sri Lanka Finance to carry on finance business under the Finance Business Act No. 42 of 2011 was cancelled by the Central Bank of Sri Lanka as per Section 66(2) of the Banking Special Provisions Act No. 17 of 2023. Compensation payments to the insured depositors of NLFP will be facilitated through the People's Bank branches.
Sri Lanka's public transport system is set for a major boost, with another fleet of 104 new metro transit buses arriving in the country.
The buses, which are expected to enter service by the 20th of September, will feature modern electronic fare payment systems aimed at improving convenience for commuters.
Another fleet of 104 new buses for Metro Transit, a subsidiary of the Sri Lanka Transport Board, has arrived in Sri Lanka. Officials say the new buses will strengthen public transport services and improve operational efficiency across the country. The expansion is part of ongoing efforts to modernize the nation's public transport network. The buses will be equipped with card-based electronic fare payment systems, offering passengers a faster and more convenient way to pay for their journeys. Authorities believe the new technology will also help improve fare collection and service management. The buses are currently undergoing final preparations before being deployed for public use. Officials expect the new fleet to begin passenger operations by the 20th of September. The latest addition is anticipated to enhance the daily travel experience for thousands of commuters while supporting a more reliable and efficient public transport service.
We'll be moving into more business-related news after this short commercial break.
This is the Nightly Business Report.
Welcome back to the Nightly Business Report.
Sri Lanka is expected to produce enough paddy this year to meet its domestic rice requirement.
Yet, thousands of farmers are protesting over low prices for their harvest. So what went wrong? Did the government's decision to allow large-scale rice imports ahead of the harvesting season distort the market, or are deeper structural issues at play?
The government says Sri Lanka will produce between 2.81 and 2.85 million metric tons of paddy this year, almost matching the country's annual rice requirement of 2.8 million metric tons. Yet, as harvesting gets underway across major farming districts, farmers are demanding better prices for their produce. The market was already flooded with imported rice before local harvesting began. More than 156,000 metric tons of Ponnisamba rice and thousands of tons of other rice varieties were imported earlier this year. By May, Sri Lanka had spent over $90 million on rice imports. Farmer organizations argue that imports increased supply at exactly the wrong time. They say cheaper imported rice weakened demand for locally produced paddy, giving private millers greater bargaining power when purchasing from farmers. The government has since reintroduced import restrictions and announced guaranteed paddy prices. Nadu at 120 rupees, Samba at 130 rupees, and Kiri Samba at 140 rupees. Senior professor in crop science at University of Peradeniya Buddhimarambe says Sri Lanka produces enough paddy to meet domestic demand, but the timing of large-scale rice imports has distorted the local market during the harvesting season. However, they caution that raising paddy procurement prices too sharply could also drive up retail rice prices, creating a difficult balance between protecting farmers and safeguarding consumers.
Still, most important part is availability of paddy is high, but whether it's depending on the quality demand or the demand of the type of rice variety, that's a different question. That's what we face right now. That's why in early part of the first quarter of this year, the government of Sri Lanka even decided to import about certain volumes of rice, but we have imported much more than 157,000 metric tons of rice. That has also created a distortion in the paddy market, rice markets as well. Though the consumer has started feeling less price in the market, the producer has fall in trouble, right? Because when the market price is low, the rice millers who will purchase most of the paddy that is being produced by paddy farmers will also be in trouble, because if paddy is purchased at a higher price, rice will have to be sold at higher prices as well. If you compare the paddy into rice price conversion in South Asia and Southeast Asia, you usually find the rice price is roughly double the price of the paddy price.
With the Paddy Marketing Board able to purchase only a fraction of the harvest, only farmers rely on private rice millers. That gives the private sector considerable influence over farm gate prices. Mill owners, however, argue that increasing paddy prices will inevitably increase rice prices. Professor of Economics at University of Colombo, Dr. S.P. Premaratne says, Sri Lanka's rice market is a delicate balance between farmers, consumers, and millers, with any increase in paddy prices likely to push up retail rice prices. He argues that high production costs and heavy reliance on subsidies continue to weigh on the industry. The long-term solution, they say, lies in improving productivity and making the sector more competitive rather than relying on price interventions alone.
If the market structure with the heavily subsidized, including fertilizer and other inputs, and also the irrigation and the water heavily subsidized because it is the free of charge, the Sri Lankan economic cost compared to the world market is very high. So with that protection, the tariff protections also Sri Lankan what we have. Now the game with the paddy and the rice is very critical, because the one side the farmers the income, then the governments try to increase the paddy rice and government always support. The other side, the rice side, the consumption, when the paddy increase, the prices of rice increase. So with that, the government has another issue. And the third part is also, it's a value creation, it's the millers. In Sri Lanka, what we have, the oligopoly type market.
Protecting farmers through higher procurement prices improves rural incomes, but higher raw material costs may also be passed on to consumers through more expensive rice, without placing an excessive burden on households already facing rising living costs. Agriculture Minister K.D. Lalkantha says no final decision has been taken on increasing Paddy Marketing Board purchasing prices. The government is considering whether to raise procurement prices or introduce alternative support measures. Officials also maintain that based on current production forecasts and imports already completed, Sri Lanka is unlikely to face a rice shortage this year. It raises broader questions about how Sri Lanka balances food security, farmer incomes, and consumer affordability. Should imports be used to stabilize prices, or should domestic producers receive greater protection during harvesting seasons? Finding that balance may ultimately determine the future of Sri Lanka's rice economy.
Sri Lanka's water authorities say there is no immediate need for water cuts as the Labugama and Kalatuava reservoirs currently hold sufficient reserves to meet demand for the next 3 months. Housing, Construction and Water Supply Minister Susil Ranasinghe says experts have confirmed that existing water levels remain adequate despite concerns over reduced rainfall.
Housing, Construction and Water Supply Minister Susil Ranasinghe says there is no need for water cuts at present as the Labugama and Kalatuava reservoirs have enough water to meet demand for the next 3 months. Minister Ranasinghe said assessments carried out by the experts of National Water Supply and Drainage Board confirmed that current storages levels are sufficient to maintain a continuous water supply. He said weather forecasts indicate below average rainfall during August and September due to the impact of the El Nino phenomenon. However, the minister stressed that existing water reserves remain adequate despite the expected reduction in rainfall. He cautioned that the situation could change depending on future weather conditions and rainfall patterns. The NWSDB continues to monitor reservoir levels and water availability to ensure uninterrupted water supply to consumers.
The government is considering allocating funds through the 2027 budget to restart and complete thousands of stalled housing projects across the country.
Housing, Construction, Water Supply Minister Dr. Susil Ranasinghe says that the move aims to address delays caused by various challenges and ensure the completion of long-pending housing schemes.
Speaking at a meeting of the Ministerial Consultative Committee, Minister Ranasinghe said around 5,000 housing projects across the country have been halted. A 5-member committee headed by 2 former ministry secretaries has been appointed to identify projects that can be completed and recommend the necessary steps for their revival. The minister said the committee is currently reviewing information on the stalled projects and preparing recommendations. He added that assistance will also be provided next year to families who are unable to complete partially built houses, with nearly 2,000 families expected to receive support under the program. The ministry has also decided to convene a special meeting with relevant stakeholders to discuss housing issues, including housing projects implemented for low-income families in the Colombo district.
The US effective tariff rate has declined to 7.4% from 9.4% after the US replaced the temporary Section 122 surcharge with the new Section 301 tariffs on imports from 60 economies. Analysts at Fitch Ratings say shifts in US sourcing patterns and tariff structures may create both challenges and opportunities for countries including Sri Lanka.
For Sri Lanka, which relies heavily on access to the US market for key exports, including apparel, the changes could have implications for competitiveness and trade opportunities. Analysts say changes in U.S. import patterns, including increased demand for tariff-exempt electronics and reduced imports from China, have contributed to the lower effective tariff rate. The revised tariff system implies different rates to various economies, with countries such as India and the United Kingdom facing a 10% additional tariff, while others face higher rates. Sri Lankan exporters are expected to closely monitor these developments as tariff changes could affect pricing, market access, and competition in the U.S. market. Trade officials say maintaining competitiveness through quality improvements, diversification, and stronger international partnerships will remain important for Sri Lanka's export sector. The development comes as Sri Lanka continues efforts to strengthen its export earnings and expand its presence in key international markets.
A court has further delayed proceedings involving former Sri Lankan Airlines chairperson Nishantha Wickramasinghe, with the case now postponed until December 2026.
While the delay will not affect airline operations, the development has renewed concerns over accountability, governance, and the future financial stability of the national carrier.
The Colombo Chief Magistrate has directed the Commission to investigate allegations of bribery or corruption to complete its investigations and submit a report to court. The case involves allegations of financial losses connected to operational decisions and the alleged misuse of public funds, while no conviction has been recorded. Authorities have stressed that the proceedings are separate from the internationally documented Airbus bribery case involving aircraft procurement. The delay comes as Sri Lankan Airlines continues efforts to overcome financial challenges, including legacy debts, losses, and fleet-related costs. The national carrier remains a key part of Sri Lanka's tourism sector, with reforms underway to improve financial stability and operational efficiency. While the court postponement will not affect flights or passenger services, analysts say resolving accountability issues remains crucial for restoring confidence in the airline.
The Chamber of Lankan Entrepreneurs and the Indian Chamber of Commerce formalized a strategic partnership with the signing of a Memorandum of Understanding in Colombo, reinforcing their shared commitment to expanding bilateral trade, investment and business collaboration.
The agreement was signed by COYLE Chairman Suren Chandraratne and Indian Chamber of Commerce Tamil Nadu Chairman Shiv Kumar Ishwaran in presence of the business leaders for both countries as part of the India-Sri Lanka bilateral trade delegation. The MOU establishes a practical framework for closer cooperation between the two chambers, creating new opportunities for entrepreneurs and businesses through the trade promotion, investment facilitation, business networking, and knowledge exchange. It reflects a shared vision of both organizations to strengthen economic ties and support sustainable private sector growth. COYLE Chairman Suren Chandraratne said the partnership marks another important milestone in strengthening regional business cooperation. The MOU was signed during the India-Sri Lanka bilateral trade delegation, a strategic initiative designed to strengthen economic cooperation, facilitate business-to-business engagement, promote investments, and create long-term commercial partnerships between the two countries.
The Consumer Affairs Authority has intensified its island-wide crackdown on motorcycle helmets that do not carry the mandatory Sri Lankan standard certification mark.
During a special enforcement operation, the CAA conducted 98 raids across the country and seized 431 helmets without the SLS 517 product certification mark.
Authorities also halted the sale of 3,520 helmets manufactured at two factories that did not have valid SLS licenses during production. The CAA said all motorcycle helmets manufactured or imported into Sri Lanka are legally required to carry the SLS 517 certification mark. Since January, the authority has carried out 151 raids and enforced actions, covering more than 4,038 helmets and filling 53 legal cases. The CAA has warned manufacturers, importers, retailers, and online sellers against producing or selling helmets that fail to meet mandatory safety standards.
We are heading for a short commercial break. Corporate updates right after this.
You're watching the Nightly Business.
Welcome back to the Nightly Business Report. The Colombo Stock Exchange showed a decline in today's session. The all-share price index declined 80.43 or 0.38% to close at 21,148.71. Meanwhile, the S&P SL20 index also declined 15.37 or 0.26% to close at 5,946.03, with the total turnover amounting to 1.09 billion rupees. The total number of shares reached 31 million shares, while the number of trades indicated 13,987. And now we have Dilhari Dias from First Capital Holdings to give more information about the market today.
Thank you, Prasansa. Today we saw some month-end selling pressure coming into the equity market. However, market went up amidst thin volumes in early hours of the trading. But the selling pressure came in during the latter part of the day. So then both ASPI and S&P SL20 indices closed in the negative territory. The retail participation was average, and there was lower high net worth investor participation as well, which led to low turnover levels during today's session. So then the turnover stood at around 1.1 billion rupees, which was 38% lower than the monthly average of 1.8 billion rupees. Mainly high net worth investor interest was observed on banking and blue chip counters. The capital goods sector contribution was 36% to the total turnover, which was followed by the banking and the real estate sectors jointly contributing with 28%. The top price losers for the day were Agstar PLC non-voting shares, Singh Hospitals PLC, the Colombo Fort Land and Building PLC, Amana Takaful PLC and CM Holdings PLC. The top negative contributors to the ASPI index were Aiken Spence PLC, Commercial Bank, ACL Cables PLC, Richard Pearis and Company PLC and Digital Mobility Solutions Lanka PLC. The top price gainers for the day were Industrial Asphalts PLC, Sarvodaya Development Finance PLC, Mercantile Shipping Company PLC, Kahawatha Plantations PLC and Lankem Development PLC. The top positive contributors to the SPI were Castle Cumberbatch PLC, Sampath Bank, Sarvodaya Development Finance PLC, Distilleries Company of Sri Lanka PLC and Industrial Asphalt Ceylon PLC.
The central bank has announced the opening of an issuance window for 4 treasury bond ISINs following the primary auction held ahead of the 3rd of August 2026 settlement date. Eligible investors may subscribe to the additional issuance at the weighted average yield rate determined at the auction, subject to a maximum allocation of 10% of the respective amount offered. To give more information regarding the treasury bond auction held today, we now have Aknat Tendakon from First Capital Holdings.
Today, the Public Debt Management Office successfully concluded the T-bond auction scheduled for today, raising a total of 250 billion rupees, which was on par with the initial offer amount. There were 4 bonds that were offered across 4 maturities, all of which fully raised the original offer amount. So in terms of the 2031 maturity, 90 billion rupees were raised and it bore a coupon of 11.60%. Moving ahead, in terms of the 2034 maturity, 80 billion rupees were raised and it bore a coupon of 11.70%. Then 50 billion rupees were raised through a 2036 maturity, which had a coupon of 10.85%. And finally, a 2037 maturity raised a total of 30 billion rupees, which bore a coupon of 10.75%. Thank you.
Gold prices turned lower today while a firmer US dollar and recovering treasury yields weighed on bullion. Gold initially rallied after the Federal Reserve left interest rates unchanged as treasury yields retreated and the US dollar index weakened immediately following the policy decision, increasing the appeal of non-yielding bullion. Spot gold fell 0.4% to $4,049.99 an ounce, after earlier climbing to a one-week high of $4,100.42 following the Fed's policy decision. Gold futures rose 0.3% to $4,047.20 an ounce. Other precious metals also showed a decline today. Spot silver slipped 0.6% to $57.32 an ounce, while spot platinum fell 1.3% to $1,597.87 an ounce. Oil prices climbed today in a volatile session as investors swing between focusing on escalating US attacks on Iran and hopes for a resolution that may resume shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. The US carried out 2 hours of attacks on Iran yesterday. Brent futures rose $1.48 or 1.63% to $92.22 a barrel. US West Texas Intermediate crude gained 43 cents or 0.51% to $84.89 a barrel. Investor focus was on the volume of oil existing, the key choke points and possibilities of a diplomatic breakthrough. Compared to Tuesday, the selling rate of the US dollar against the Sri Lankan rupee edged down slightly today, falling from 340 rupees and 71 cents to 340 rupees and 59 cents. Meanwhile, according to the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, the buying rate slipped marginally from 331 rupees and 59 cents to 331 rupees and 48 cents, indicating a slight appreciation of the Sri Lankan rupee against US dollar over the two-day period. Now we can take a closer look at how the Sri Lankan rupee is performing against other major global currencies today.
We'll be moving into more business-related news after this short commercial break.
This is the Nightly Business Report. Welcome back to the Nightly Business Report.
John Keel's Holdings reported strong operating earnings for the first quarter of 2026-27 financial year, driven by robust performances in its transportation, retail and property businesses.
Group revenue increased 24% year-on-year to 141.6 billion rupees, while EBITDA rose 26% to 16.3 billion rupees.
Profit after tax grew 8% to 773 million rupees, with profit attributable to shareholders improving 62 million rupees compared with a loss of 804 million rupees a year earlier. However, a 1.9 billion rupees net exchange loss, mainly due to the depreciation of the rupee against the US dollar, significantly reduced the group's bottom line earnings. The higher tax expenses also weighed on net profit. The transportation sector was the strongest contributor, supported by growth at Lanka Marine Services, the Colombo West International Terminal, and improved performance at the South Asia Gateway terminals. Bunkering volumes rose 38% during the quarter. Meanwhile, Keel Supermarkets recorded a 16% increase in EBITDA, supported by higher same-store sales, while the property business benefited from apartment sales at Viman and Trees and Cinnamon Life. Looking ahead, JKH chairperson Krishan Balendra said forward bookings for the group's leisure business have strengthened from August, but cautioned that the lookout remains dependent on regional geopolitical developments and travel demand.
DEMO hosted the DEMO Agri-Machinery Prestige Awards 2025-26, recognizing outstanding performances by its agricultural machinery dealer network in the areas of sales, spare parts and after-sales services. The award ceremony celebrated dealer excellence while reaffirming DEMO's commitment to strengthening long-term partnerships and delivering customer-focused service through its island dealer network, supporting the development of Sri Lanka's agricultural sector.
In a special gesture, DEMO also invited the spouses of its agricultural machinery dealers as honored guests, acknowledging their continuous support, dedication and sacrifices behind the success of the dealers. The company said the initiative reflected its commitment to celebrating not only business achievements but also the people who contribute to them. The event also commemorated the 35-year partnership between DEMO and Mahindra Tractors, highlighting its contribution to the mechanization of Sri Lanka's agriculture. Further expanding its agricultural machinery portfolio, DEMO unveiled Mahindra OJ8 tractor and the Lowell RG102 Pro Harvester, aimed at enhancing productivity and providing modern farming solutions to meet the evolving needs of Sri Lankan farmers.
DFCC Bank introduces Sri Lanka's first ATMs and cash recycler machines, offering transactions in 8 languages. The new machines are available in tourist arrival areas like Bandaranaike International Airport and DFCC Bank locations like Hirikatiya, Yala and Arugambe.
The service offers English, Sinhala, Tamil, French, Chinese, Russian, Hindi and German, with a wider rollout across the bank's all-island network. Foreign visitors can navigate and withdraw cash without having to interpret banking instructions in another language, while Sri Lankan customers can use self-service banking in Sinhala, Tamil or English. The initiative comes as tourism continues to play an important role in Sri Lanka's economy. As Sri Lanka attracts more visitors, the services they rely on must become easier to access across languages and nationalities. fees. Users select their preferred language at the beginning of the transaction and follow the on-screen instructions in that language. DFCC Bank has expanded the facility progressively across its ATM and CRM network, prioritizing tourism destinations, points of arrival and other locations where multilingual access can make the greatest practical difference.
Odell plc has announced that the construction of its flagship Odell Mall project in Colombo 7 has officially resumed, with the company now prioritizing the completion of Zone 1.
In a disclosure to the Colombo Stock Exchange, Odell said the project has been strategically revised to focus on the first phase, which is expected to be completed within the next 1.5 to 2 years. Meanwhile, Zone 2, a 100-perch land block, which will be retained for future development and is not part of the current construction phase. The company said the disclosure was issued to address market speculation and provide shareholders with a clear and realistic update on the progress and future direction of the landmark mixed-use developments.
Digital Mobility Solutions Lanka plc, the operator of PickMe, reported strong financial and operational growth for the first quarter of the years 2026-2027, generating 22 billion rupees in income for its network of independent drivers and merchant partners, a 50% year-on-year increase. The company said it also contributed 773 million rupees in taxes during the quarter, despite temporary fuel supply disruptions linked to the Middle East conflict.
Revenue rose 40% to 2.5 billion rupees, while gross transaction value increased 48% to 25.3 billion rupees. More than 85% of that value was earned directly by PickMe's network of drivers and merchants, highlighting the platform's growing contribution to livelihoods and digital commerce. Total platform movements increased 43%, supported by a 40% rise in average monthly unique consumers, the highest level recorded by the company. Net profit climbed 45% year-on-year to 631 million rupees, although it eased slightly from the previous quarter due to fuel supply constraints, higher IT infrastructure costs, and the impact of the rupee's depreciation. Meanwhile, founder and chief executive officer said the company will continue investing in technology, strengthening driver supply, and expanding its regional presence to support Sri Lanka's digital economy.
CSE Clear, the Colombo Stock Exchange's wholly owned clearing subsidiary, has marked its first anniversary, completing a year as Sri Lanka's first central counterpart, or CCP. The company said the introduction of the CCP model has strengthened the country's capital market by reducing counterpart risk, improving settlement efficiency, and aligning Sri Lanka's post-trade infrastructure with international best practices.
During its first year of operations, CSE Clear successfully cleared and settled more than 1.18 trillion rupees worth of transactions through over 8 million trades. The company also established a comprehensive margining framework and a contributory guarantee fund to enhance risk management and support market stability. Chairman Arjuna Hera described the milestone as a landmark achievement that lays the foundation for a more resilient and dynamic capital market. Looking ahead, CSE Clear said it will focus on expanding post-trade capabilities, strengthening risk management, and supporting new market products while continuing to align with global clearing and settlement standards.
Sri Lankan leadership development and coaching company SmartQuest has expanded into the Maldives, marking its first international venture as the company celebrates 20 years in operation. The newly established SmartQuest Coaching and Consulting Maldives will offer leadership training, professional coaching certification, executive and team coaching.
Founded in Colombo in 2006, SmartQuest has worked with more than 600 local and multinational organizations and supported the professional development of over 10,000 individuals. Founder Andrea Jathilaka said the expansion reflects the company's vision of developing stronger leaders to build stronger organizations. Through its partnership with Coach Masters Academy, SmartQuest will also provide access to internationally accredited coaching qualifications and expertise from a global network operating across 34 countries. The company said the Maldives launch is part of its broader strategy to expand its leadership development and coaching services across South Asia while continuing its operations in Sri Lanka.
Let's head in for a short commercial break. Global business updates coming on the other side.
This is an activist. Welcome back to the Nightly Business Report.
Most Asian stock markets fell today as investors' worry around AI-related spending persisted, despite strong earnings from Samsung Electronics and major US technology companies.
South Korea's Kospi traded 0.5% lower after swinging between gains and losses. Japan's Nikkei 225 rose 1%, backing the regional trend, while the broader Topix index was 0.4%. Elsewhere, China's Shanghai Composite fell 1.2%, and the blue chip CSI 300 slipping 2.2%. Hong Kong's Hang Seng traded largely unchanged, while India's Nifty 50 were muted.
Thank you for watching the Nightly Business Report on other Derana News channel. Share events or media releases by email on business@derana.lk.
We will see you again tomorrow with the latest updates in the business world. Vidit Parnasuri will be joining you with Sports Central. Until then, I am Sani Mudanayaka.
And I'm Prasansa Gunawardana. Thank you for watching and have a good night.